This is James Somerton, and he has some, interesting things to say. A lot of about certain movies. Now, some things I don't agree with him. I think, you know, that like the Babadook being gay, that's a stretch at best. But he talks about, for example, Jennifer's Body here, the film Jennifer's Body.
The coding, though, is obvious enough for most anyone to see. Later, when Jennifer grabs and squeezes Needy's hand during the concert proper, Needy is
like, he makes a decent attempt of saying that this is maybe a lesbian affair. The only thing that gets in the way is the fact that Jennifer attacks men and kills men. If she's a lesbian, she should be, by right, be going after and killing women, right? She's possessed by a demon in this show. So she should be attacking women. But no, she goes after guys. So what's the suggestion here? That lesbians want to murder men? Is that, James, is that your interpretation? Oh my God.
cheek, or even lips, that's nothing. If you hear two women say I love you, you don't immediately think lesbians. Well, there is a much stricter code of conduct for men and boys. No hand-holding, no hugs that last for too long, and a kiss or an I love you, even between fathers and sons, absolutely not. And so there's a bit of gay male privilege there. If another boy or man is acting very close and intimate, the assumption can be made that he's at the very least not homophobic, and quite possibly open to something more. The situation is easier to read because there are so many barriers put up between men, a possible upside to toxic masculinity. But for young women, how can you tell if another girl is interested in you in a romantic or sexual way? Because she kissed you? Held your hand? Cuddled? You've likely been doing that with female friends all your life. As if being a woman wasn't hard enough already.
Hold it, James. Hold it. So your idea of a hard life for women is that they have a harder time telling if they're into, the same sex? That's your big... Women have had it easy throughout all history, James. Throughout all history, throughout all the world. I mean, these girls, if they were ever found out to be gay, who's going to beat them up? Nobody. How dare you try and put women above men? Put them into their victimhood narrative. That's pathetic. You, as a gay man, have no self-respect.
As if being a woman wasn't hard enough already. 1979's Alien, directed by Ridley Scott, is often considered as one of the first feminist science fiction movies. With its powerful central female character...
Whoever said that would be wrong.
Reproduction and sexual violence, the film has become lauded for being a cornerstone in feminist film theory. It's also monstrously queer. Not only is Ellen Ripley a strong, butch heroine who does not...
Here's the thing. When the part of Ripley, when it was written for a man, James. So all you're seeing with Ripley is you're seeing a woman, a man in a woman's body. That's why Ripley, by the way, James, that's why she appeals to men so well. Because she shows the valor of men. She shows all the good qualities of being a man. Women and girls, they don't fawn all over Ripley as a character. They don't care about her. It's the guys who always thought, wow, she's so cool. Ripley does not appeal to girls. They give lip service, but that's not who they care about. Okay?
From initial perceptions, all of our characters are similarly gendered neutral. They wear the same loose jumpsuits and are addressed by their surnames, removing any basis for gendered pronouns. The ship's male mechanics complain about being paid less than everyone else, including the female crew, at a time in America when women were being paid 60 cents for every dollar a man made.
James,
Once cast,
I
and
won't
the
let
actors
you
were given the freedom
do
to play their
this.
parts as masculine or feminine, star Sigourney Weaver decided to play her character.
I won't let you do this. The wage gap is due to women's working preferences. They, James, don't need to work like men do. Women do not get left behind when they lose their jobs from their husbands. If men want a woman in their life, they have to bribe her. They have to make more than her. That's where the gap comes from. So men put in more hours. They climb the ladders. They have enticements. You know what? How you get rid of the gap? Men would have to stop giving a shit about bribing women into their lives. That's how it works, James.
Is completely gender neutral. In horror, especially at the time of release, female characters were always portrayed as victims or damsels in distress. While in Alien, Ripley is neither of those things. She's strong and self-reliant.
Well, it makes sense that they'd be in damsels because it matches on to real life. There is no Ripleys from what I see in real life, James. That's why women are often damseled in movies. Because someone says, okay, I've got this weird aliens, I got to make everything else normal, right? So actually, Ripley is a male fantasy. Women are not looking at Ripley and saying, I want to be her. Men are looking at Ripley and saying, I wish women were like her.
Furthermore, when Ripley asserts authority in the team after Dallas is caught by the alien, Ash, the male robot, feels threatened and attempts to dominate Ripley to regain his masculinity.
Hold it. I thought you just said that everything's gender neutral. Ash is a machine. He doesn't have gender. He only looks like a man. And that tells me everything about your mindset, James. All you guys who talk about, gender dysphoria, to you, gender is skin deep. If you look like a man, you are a man. If you look like a woman, you are a woman. And that's all that matters to you people. Now, this guy, Ash, the machine, as I said, doesn't have a gender. So you are foisting this bullshit onto this character. The reason Ash works like this is because he's not human. He doesn't have empathy the way human beings do. So he can't be a stand-in for the male mind. Are all the other males not male now? I mean, you're trying to make them into like gender neutral, but they're all men. The guy who comes and rescues Ripley from this attack is a man, and he's motivated by a male mind, sir.
He's a genderless robot. However, he exemplifies constructed toxic masculinity, aggression, a fragile ego, and stubbornness. He attacks Ripley, who exemplifies gender neutrality and sexual equality, literally attacking her with gender conformity by shoving a porn magazine down her throat. Another male character, Kane.
You're out of your mind. You're out of your mind. This guy isn't male simply because he's a psychopath. That would mean you're a psychopath. James, you're a guy. James, can I ask you a question? Is this a case where you think you got a get out of jail free card? Here's my gay card. My brain doesn't work like other men. This is what you think, isn't it? In your brain. You think when the gender KKK comes around and wants to put you in an oven, you're just gonna flash your gay card and say, no, don't get me. There's these other bad guys over there, the typical straight man, get him. He's the bad guy. I'm your purse puppy. I'm the one that you care about and see eye to. This is pathetic, James. This is why I'm losing respect for gay men. I used to think gay men stood up for themselves. Most of you guys are losers.
Is orally raped by the facehugger. This leads to a forced impregnation, leading to death in what is essentially childbirth, removing the assumed male privilege of avoiding the pain of childbirth and bringing it to a horrific conclusion. Not only is Cain raped and killed, but gives birth to a vicious, bloodthirsty phallus. It's been no secret that H.R. Geiger designed every form of the xenomorph.
James, are you suggesting childbirth women die? They don't give up their lives. If that was the case, James, women would stop giving birth to children. And you're basically saying, oh, this is a male child then, if it's a phallic syndrome. And of course, it's vicious. James, are you vicious? Are you vicious, James? If not, then you're either wrong about the male gender or you're what? An Uncle Tom?
Society's construction of gender is to blame. We get a less coded queer representation in 1986's sequel when, for a split second, we see a biography of the character Lambert from the first film. The biography establishes Lambert as having had her gender reassigned from male to female. Lambert's bio reads, "Despite conversion at birth from male to female, so far there are no signs of suppressed trauma from gender reassignment." And so, in a horror movie from 1979, we technically have a transgender character who is never othered, never misgendered, and is not a villain. A retcon that changes nothing about the story but adds trans representation when little, if any, was available. James Cameron's Aliens is curiously progressive in its sexual politics overall, especially for a movie released during the Reagan years. Take, for instance, the exchange between Hudson and Frost. "Hey, sure my is tougher than most of the men in her squad," in a movie released 27 years before the United States military even let women take on combat roles.
Hold it. First of all, if a man was in this role, you would be making fun of her, James. She would say he was the most toxic, most masculine man there. That's what you'd be saying. Vasquez, she's like a lot of lesbians. She takes what she thinks is being a male role, and she jacks it up to 11. This is a joke character to me. It always was. Vasquez was always a joke character to me. She was embarrassing. You know. Also, James, the military allowing women into the army. They conscript men. They never conscript women, James. Conscription is slavery. Men who don't want to go are forced to go there. And you know something? Now that they let women in, two things happen. One, they lower the standards so that they can have those women there, because the women can't keep up with the men. And two, the women are never conscripted. It's always voluntary. They get privilege over the men every time. So don't start making this about boo-hoo, the opposite sex. How come all you gay men fawn over the old opposite sex the way straight men do? Other than your orientation, you're no different than the next loser guy.
And let women take on combat roles. But is she herself queer? The actress who played her, Jeanette Goldstein, weighed in on that question in 2016. She's an outsider. She was just who she was. With Vasquez, I never said she was straight or gay because, to her, it was.
Also, isn't Vasquez taking on the toxic masculine role of murder? She's hauling on a big gun. She's going to destroy someone or something. You know, they might be fighting aliens today, but that means tomorrow, she might be shooting up a bunch of people. So why is this toxic masculine role no longer toxic once a woman takes it? Come on, James, show some respect.
It's nobody's business. A lot of gay women come up and say, "Oh my God, when I saw you and you had a masculine look to you, I saw myself. But I had straight women coming up to me with the same thing. Someone was going through breast cancer, and she told me that with each round of chemo, she would think of Vasquez. A gay man from Guatemala came to me and he said, I identify so much with her. But he was very feminine. Vasquez is universal. Elsewhere in the film is Bishop, another sexless cyborg like the first film's Ash. David Grevin in Demeter and Persephone in Space observes, Bishop.
So since Bishop, I mean, is he going to automatically become female because he's a good person? Retooled as a queer suffering body? Oh my God.
The cyborg, retooled as a queer suffering body, is an example of a resistant masculinity, devoid of any obvious sexual desire. Such figures suggest queer sexuality in films and...
Well, neither did Ash, right? So why are you foisting the male gender on him as soon as he becomes a villain? James, you complain about gay men being made villains all the time. And yet here you're doing the exact same thing with straight men.
represent a cisgendered heteronormative status quo that resents the changing times. What gives this...
The queen? The queen is a matriarch. She craps out eggs. Then the eggs are male, and then they make aliens that are basically genderless. It has nothing to do with the regular heterosexual family. James, you don't even know what you're talking about.
This entire spectacle of shaming, its radical charge, is the queer typing of Ripley as mother. With her short hair and male garb, Ripley combines the masculine and the feminine. With her casual indifference to heterosexual sex, despite some no-sweat flirtation with Hicks, she suggests the possibility of different sexual needs. With her adoption of a child, she suggests the lesbian mother who thinks outside the normative procreational box. The alien queen's vicious contempt conveys the charge.
How would you think of that? So, yeah, adoption. But she can't give birth. You have to get semen or something. Sorry, James, this is silly. Especially in an era where men aren't allowed to adopt children.
Of an old, customary inability to recognize the beauty and heroism in queer love of the kind Ripley and Newt embody.
What are you talking about? She's got a thing for Reese. She's got a thing for Reese. She's a straight woman in this film.
Read as a queer allegory, Ripley, Newt, the reintegrated android Bishop, and the...
Yeah, this is what you see. Father, mother, daughter. There's nothing queer about this. This is so standard, James. It hurts. This is pathetic on your part.
The wounded, vulnerable, and bedridden Hicks together constitute the new queer family. The alien
They're
queen...
not queer in any way. Jesus. You know what's missing down here, James? I had one sentence that said, why are you attacking your own gender? And I don't see it here anymore. See, it's only the wage gap one and the Ripley character, right? For the male lead. So you removed that because you didn't want to be honest about what you're doing. That's what's so pathetic. Look, she even admits it, Maddie. He deleted a comment earlier, 2602, where he called the statement anti-male propaganda. When I gave him evidence, I saw was lying and said the gender KK, definitely a troll. See, obvious troll is baiting, yet they're arguing with me, aren't they? Oh, it's just a troll. And so James shows his hands when he deleted that comment. James, you are a fucking loser. 2602. Okay, let's
real beast in Hellraiser,
see what
not the
else.
Cenobites. Like how you're more likely to be raped or killed by your husband than anyone you'd meet in an S&M club.
There you go. That's a complete bullshit lie. And you know something, James? What pissed me off, because I wanted to show you that comment, is some asshole here turned around and said that 40%, James, 40% of women were murdered by their husbands. Are you going to back that statement up? For instance, they could have said 3% and maybe it'd be believable, but then you couldn't demonize men, could you? So she said 40%. And of course, if it was 40%, two things, Jane, women would not get married if there was that violence. Women are coward, they would never get together. But they do it all the time. Two, you would be seeing it, and you don't. You don't see it. You'd be headlines all over the news if women were getting murdered by their husbands at any regular rate. So for you to remove that, that shows you just, you knew what that meant. You know how bad it made you look. Sorry, James, I've lost all respect for you. When I first got into your channel here, I thought it was pretty interesting, but you are a loser, James. You're one of those Uncle Toms who, as far as you're concerned, you're glad that men go to the gas chambers. Just as long as it's not you. But the thing is, you can't escape, James, because you're a guy. You see, all that garbage we're putting on to the male characters in these films, they're going to be put onto you because you look like a man. You know, if Ash the Robot becomes an evil man just because he does bad things, just because he looks like male, then you're the same boat. You look like a guy, so everything you say about men is going to be projected onto you because you're a man. I'm sorry, but man, you are a perfect example of how low a human being can go. Goodbye.